Hi guys, welcome to the Recovery Channel. Welcome to another OCD Real Talk episode. We are here with Paul Little and obviously Nick, who is always there, unfortunately, with me. So we wanted to talk about physical symptoms related to anxiety today, and I think Nick and Paul are perhaps like the ideal candidates to discuss that. More so Paul, I would say, because some of the things I've heard him talk about with his journey are I never experienced that, so I don't know like how you dealt with that. So Paul, let's start with you. Can you list down the amount of physical symptoms that you had?
Um, yeah, I've had a lot of different ones. I would say my voice is a little weird right now, so but um, uh, so here from top to bottom. So I've had stomach problems like stomach aches. I've had burning sensations in my stomach. I've had diarrhea, uh, vomiting. I've had headaches. My eyes have hurt. My head's hurt. I've had like pains in my body, pains in my neck. I have this thing where like this muscle tightening will happen in my neck, and it will literally feel like someone is almost like pulling me backwards.
Mm,
I've had periods for like weeks where I feel like I'm going to throw up constantly. And
mm,
I've had periods where I almost feel like I felt like I was like on a manic episode or something because my energy levels would be so high. I just was, it felt like I was gonna honestly, like if I was sitting down, that I would shoot up out of my seat. I've had heart palpitations, sweating, just pretty much all across the board for me.
did you also have like acidity issues as well, like acid reflux and stuff?
Yeah, I did have acid reflux. Yeah, I definitely had acid reflux. I had to take a medication for it too, for probably about 3 to 4 months at one time because it was so bad.
Hmm. And were you going, did you ever, I'm not sure about this, but did you ever or were you going like to different doctors and stuff to like see if there was like what was happening, if there was something wrong? And if you did, then what did they say?
Yeah, so I went the first time I went to doctors for it, when it came to my like a bunch of different physical sensations. I got like my thyroid checked. I got like
Mm,
and I was having a bunch of stomach problems, so I got a like an allergy test to see if I was allergic to
mm,
different types of foods and stuff. They all came back negative. But um, I mean, I went to a doctor too, obviously, because I ended up getting an ulcer. But it actually was from the anxiety. I ended up getting an ulcer because the acid reflux was so bad. So those
mm,
are. So the doctors just basically were like, "Oh, you're healthy as a horse. You don't really have anything wrong with you. I wouldn't worry about
mm,
it. Oh, don't stress. Take this pill for acid
mm.
reflux. I think it's just maybe you have a little stress going on. Nothing crazy."
And so when you're having these intense physical symptoms, when you're going through something like that, in that moment, let's say you are having intense heart palpitations or you are like you're on the verge, you feel like you're on the verge of throwing up. In that moment, how did you get through those moments? What made you feel better or what made you get through? Like what was the way that you went through that particular moment?
Um, for me personally, I would say I, you know, I really got to a point where I realized that the reason these things were happening was because my body really needed it. Like I needed to experience and feel these things to let my body like almost like release it, if that makes any sense. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so so every time it started happening, I started really thinking of it as like another opportunity. So, I'd be like, oh, before I would freak out or be upset or feel bad for myself, but then I got to a point where I was like every time it would happen I was like, okay, this is another like step forwards. And I didn't try to figure it out. I didn't try to understand it. I didn't try to make it go away. I didn't do compulsions to avoid feeling that way. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to be uncomfortable, and I'm not going to try to make it go away. And whatever happens, I'm
And
just going to live the life I
what
want.
what kind of compulsion before this? What kind of compulsions were you doing to avoid it or trying to make it go away?
I meditated every day. This was like years ago. Meditated.
Mhm.
I also did like I'm a certified yoga teacher. I did a bunch of like chants and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I did yoga. Um, I mean, I've read the Bible before every day compulsively. Um, I exercised. Exercise is probably a really big one for me. Um, eating, different, avoiding all kinds of different foods to try to make it go away.
Mhm.
Um, just I had a journal that I wrote affirmations in. I would write in every single day,
Mhm.
over and over and over and over and over, pages of stuff all the time.
Okay. I mean, again, I think like the maximum physicalness of my symptoms was perhaps feeling like my body was constantly vibrating with so much anxiety in my body, and just being feeling like I was chronically fatigued all the time, just tired, 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 not being able to move a muscle, not wanting to move a muscle. Um, but I never had like physical symptoms like this in that way. So I mean, this is something in that sense that I feel like I I don't fully relate to myself. So Nick, like you had sensory motor OCD, which is quite physical in nature in a way. But like, what did you have like particular physical symptoms going through your recovery journey?
Yeah, I had really strong physical symptoms of anxiety that would be there. Maybe I'd have a total of 30 minutes a day where they weren't present in some degree, but I had physical symptoms of anxiety at all times. Heart palpitations, irritability, shortness of breath, headaches, blurry vision. Sometimes my vision was so blurry, I couldn't even see a stop sign from like 10 feet away. That
Mhm.
freaked me out. Because I'd be like, oh crap, do I need glasses and stuff like that? Um, and I think when it comes to physical symptoms recovery, the biggest kickback I get when I'm working with people is I usually recommend a trial where they stop. Paul's going to be able to relate with this one a lot. I get a lot of kickback on this. If you saw a post I wrote on the other day in the Facebook group, Momin, I really thought about how I worded it before I hit enter. It was on that ashwagandha post. When I have someone that comes in with physical symptoms of anxiety, one of the exposures I recommend are stopping all supplements. And the reason why I do is because usually they say this: no, 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 no. No, I need to take them. That's how I can tell in a matter of 2 seconds that they need to stop taking them for now. Gone for now doesn't mean gone forever. It was like caffeine with me.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to read something real quick, which I think is amazing. So I'm reading another one of the Ellis books that I haven't read before. And this book is called How to Control Your Anxiety Before It Controls You. And I want to read a paragraph from this book. You're going to be able to relate to this very well, Paul.
I just want to say this guy needs a little bit of creativity though with his titles because they're all the same format.
All of them, all of them, all of them. So it's called How to Dispute Your Secondary Irrational Belief. And what this is your anxiety about your anxiety. So let's say someone has a fear of dying, but then they have a secondary belief of, oh my God, the anxiety from that belief is so terrible. And that's where the fear comes in.
Mhm.
So how does it follow that if I'm an anxious person, I can't stand it? What makes that so terrible? And this is the answer. It is most unfortunate that I suffer with anxiety about my anxiety because I don't like feeling like this. but it can't be so bad that it must not exist, because it does exist. Okay? And it's foolish to think that such a bad feeling must mean that I have a bad and worthless life. Where will it get me if I absolutely believe that my anxiety is so bad, and it will get me more anxious about my anxiety? And I just got off of the one before this with someone who has really bad fear. All of the, Paul, you'll be able to relate. It's sensory motor, GAD, and fear of sensations. So it's just fear, right? The whole thing. And I said to them, you've been spending the last 2 years of your life doing what I did. I would wake up every day and think, Momin, you'll be able to relate to this. We all can. Like, subconsciously, you wake up in the morning and you think, it's going to be different today. Today's going to be different. You're like, I'm going to be 50% better. And then 2 minutes later, you're anxious and you're like this. Oh, it's back. So it's like, first you have to accept that you have OCD. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, because once I started to recover from sensory motor, I don't know how this was with you, Paul, and I want your opinion on this as well. When you first started to get more clarity on your saliva and swallowing, like the bigger sensations, what other things popped up to take the place of those sensations? Like, what other sensations took the forefront?
I mean, I thought I got rid of the majority of my sensations in my first like go around, but the one that really I would say that the two that really came back were the neck tightening. I'd never experienced it, like, ever. And honestly, a few times a week I'll have it happen for 2 or 3 seconds. And it's just because I'm sensitized, but it's I would say that, that was probably my biggest one. And then that feeling of really feeling like I was manic, where it was just kind of sticking there. Those were the ones that kind of came up and just stayed for almost 8 months, just nonstop. I was always feeling those, and it was weird. I'd never experienced them before. They came out of nowhere, and I was, it's just I would say those two. Honestly, those were the two biggest ones.
So interesting how that works. I don't know how that is with you, Momin, with contamination OCD. Would you go through like different periods where like some of the contamination, like feeling sensations, like the vibrancy of your body, like would you get over one of those and then something else would kind of stick in like a new sensation pattern? Or was it primarily just like the fear of your contamination, whatever that was involved in that, and then that was it? Like, did you have sensations that were kind of going back and forth?
Not really, to be honest. Like, I think I pretty much had it. I mean, the way, however it functioned, was pretty much like the same in like the symptoms I experienced, or whether, I mean, how it manifested itself, like through compulsions and stuff like that. It was more or less the same. Even in terms of sensations, there was no variety of sensations that I ever had. It was just like I think the only thing that at some point I realized was happening, I don't know for how long, if it was always there or if it was something I later had, was just feeling like this headband was like just constantly tight. It was just constantly tight around here, just constantly stretched. I always felt like I needed a massage. And just hearing like Paul talk about like his physical symptoms, I think like sometimes I do wonder, because I've always had, even from a relatively young age, because I was always an anxious kid, I've always had strained shoulders and a strained neck. Like whenever if you touch me right now, you would feel like a lot of knots right now. And so I love getting massages because it's always so relieving. It's like, oh my God, yes, I needed that so much. I mean, I don't know. I mean, of course, people have bad posture and that happens, but I don't know if my posture has been that bad for my entire life for me to have constant like strained muscles over here. So I don't know, maybe it could be chronic
Well,
anxiety.
I think this is such a great topic to get on, Moment, because this is what we're going to be talking about in our webinar tomorrow, which is the health, the pain, and all of that stuff. As someone who is a chiropractor, I can tell you weekly, 3, 4 times a week, I have people, the way that people view their pain is very unhealthy. You know, it's so funny. Like, I can't laugh. Like, sometimes I've actually done this. I'll have like my notes up and I'll be like, I'll pretend, I'll be like, because it makes me think of OCD. They'll be like this to me: I just need to experience no pain ever. I'm like, that's not a good
Not happening. Yeah.
outcome. Humans feel pain. We're pain feeling creatures, whether it's an
Yeah.
itch or a scratch or an annoyance.
And that brings me to this question that I also wanted to ask. Like, Paul, like, I would want to know your experience. So let's say you have like a constant headache that's not going away. When you are at work and you have this headache, how how are you able to function with the headache and still trying to do your job?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm, when I've experienced those feelings to the maximum, um, I mean, I guess the best way I can put it is, I just put my head down and knock. I know it sounds funny, but that's an expression we use like in my job. But you don't always feel like going to work every day. Sometimes you just don't feel it, and you just have to just put your head down and just go to work. So I would be irritable sometimes to other people at work, but I mean it's I don't know. I've always just been a person that worked honestly, and when you go and you have good positive distractions like that, anyways, it makes a big difference when it comes to those sensations and stuff like that.
Can you
Okay.
elaborate real quick? Can you elaborate on what you just said? Because I think this is so key. You just said something that Momin and I talk about so much.
Healthy distraction.
How important is having a work life structure, especially like going to work, showing up when it comes to OCD and anxiety recovery? How important is that?
I think it's essential because there's a few different things that you can do in your life, right? And work is usually a major aspect. You got work, relationships, and I would say work and relationships are probably the two biggest things that you're going to do in life, right? Maybe hobbies. So excuse me. I think that when you do them, especially work, for example, um, it kind of gives you a almost new belief where you can do anything even when you're uncomfortable. If you can go to work every day and you can do something that makes you money and be able to do it to the best of your ability, I mean, you should be able to do anything else in life, and it you know what I mean. So when I think it just instills beliefs in yourself, and it can change perspectives. I think it's super important.
I love it.
And I think, like, for me as well, I relate to that a lot because with contamination OCD, I've spoken about this on a couple of webinars as well, and I think I've mentioned it maybe on a real talk before, because my college was essentially my trigger zone. Everything over there was essentially 95% of like my entire campus was contaminated for me. But I did not give myself that option to just be like, okay, I'm just either going to change my university or I'm just going to not study at all till I recover. I always showed up. I went to all my classes. I did not miss any days. I did all my exams, did all my papers, and the thing is that when I there were exams that I gave that where I was sitting in a chair that was contaminated for me because the seating plan was assigned by the instructor, the professor. So I could not be like, no, I can't sit there. I mean, I just had to do it. So I took a lot of my exams with 100% anxiety, 100% fear running down head to toe, but being like, okay, so when the economic crisis happened in Greece, how did they deal with it? Uh, and that really it genuinely and that what you said is so important. always showed up for classes. And then even for social life, I would say, yes, there were points where I was avoiding social contact to a certain degree, but I would say still 70-80% of the time I was still showing up with my friends, going out with them, not saying no to them. And I kept up the parts of my life that I still cared about, that I knew were important. And I tried not to like completely put myself in that shell because of any OCD fear or like physical symptoms. So yeah.
No, I think that's a really good point, Momin. I mean, it's so important to talk about what we've all done when anxious, because society has a belief system. I just talked about this in my new Fear of Fear video. Society has a belief system that in order to be relaxing, one can be experiencing no discomfort. And I completely disagree with that because of my own experience. I've been on the couch watching a movie in a state of relaxation. Like I'm sitting there watching a movie, eating popcorn, while basically having a panic attack. And to someone, they'll say this to me, well,
Yep.
then you're not relaxing. But I disagree with that because I still was calm in the sense of I wasn't like, I need to get up, I need to get up. I just was totally accepting. It's like standing outside in the rain, right? You're just standing there in the rain getting soaked by the weather. And you're just like, yeah, I'm being rained on right now. That's how it is with anxiety. So
And this reminds me, like I've had like being at a dinner with people and just like having conversation, them asking me, okay, so what are you studying? So what do you do? And me having a panic attack in my head, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just in my fourth semester, and it's going great. And there is that I don't like you said something really important. It's funny but also strange how you can be inside you feel like you are completely losing it, but on the face of it you're just having a good conversation with people, or talking to them, playing a game with them, or something of the sort. I don't know how that happens, but it happens.
it absolutely, and I think it's a large part because I think when someone comes in, like I brought Paul now to like 2 or 3 different one-to-ones, which I very much appreciate Paul coming in, especially when we were talking about the supplements and stuff, because there's a lot of people that probably have health anxiety, like serious, not maybe OCD, but they go down that rabbit hole of trying to escape that discomfort. And I just can't think of a better exposure for a sensation, right, Paul, than just doing your life activities, going to the gym, cooking meals, going out to dinner, hanging out with your friends and family. Like I like what Jade said, Momin. Jade on her recent video she made like 3 weeks ago, she'd say to herself, would I do this if I didn't have OCD? And I really liked how she said that because that didn't help me as much with my sensations as much as it did my body dysmorphia, because like I wouldn't do certain things because I was so afraid I was going to lose muscle or whatever it may be. And I would ask myself, if I didn't have OCD, would I do this? And the answer would always be yes. Like it was always going to be yes, to a
Yeah.
degree. And I think that was very important. Paul, I want to ask.
And Paul,
Go
oh
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask
You go
Paul
ahead.
this question too. The last question that I have for you for today: if you could give, this is for panic disorder, GAD, sensory motor, anything where the person is afraid of a sensation. What would you say is the biggest mistake that you made over the course of your journey that you would teach people to educate to not make that mistake?
I mean, I would say two, because I have to say both of these, but the first one is not reading all the books on the reading list. I'm sorry. That's probably the biggest one, because the very last book on the reading list made a massive difference for me. And then the second thing I would say is, is really looking at the fear, like really looking at the fear. I would say when I did my disputing, I did it so minimal, and I think that if I would have really taken the time to do it the way I was supposed to, I would have recovered a lot faster. I think I just was uncomfortable for years, and it took me longer to recover because I kind of just bullied it out, and just let myself be uncomfortable for a really long time till eventually it was like, nope, you're still uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if you think you're not afraid of it. You still gotta, and I really think that's what it was for me, man. I remember having a conversation actually with you, Nick, and you were like, "Well, how have you done disputing?" And I was like, "Oh, I just talked to myself for like a minute in the shower, every once in a while." And you're like, "What?"
Yeah,
like, dude.
that's still something that we have to clarify, that you cannot dispute just in your head and just be like, no, this is not that bad, this is not that bad. You have to like spend more time breaking it down.
Yeah.
And Paul, like, wait, I completely lost my train of thought. I was about to ask something and then I completely forgot. Never mind.
Well, this is all add on to what Momin just said. I always use this in the webinars, and Momin might have heard me say this. Imagine if you showed up to a physics exam that's math based, and the teacher said to you, "Here are the problems. Let me know when you have the answer." You'd be like, "Well, where's my paper and pencil?" He'd be like, "No, in your head, and then repeat to me." It's like, no, I want to
That's
look at
actually really good. Yeah, that's a very, very good way to put it,
And so,
actually.
like, for me, I have my goals, like my monthly goals, and just like stuff I have to do for my work in here. But like, I'll give you an example of one of them. Like, when people ask me, like, what does it look like? So let's see. Okay, here's one. Here's a belief that Momin suggested that I work on a little bit. And the belief was patience is terrible, because I really did believe that having to be patient was terrible. So I said, well, what were the compulsions that I was doing, right? Always, this is such a hard one for me, always needing to multitask, like doing 15 things at once, because that would perceive like I would never have to be trying to focus on one thing and feel uncomfortable. That was a big one for me, really big. Giving into my urges. And then I would ask myself, this is all written down. This is why it's so important. Where is the universal principle stating that I must be patient? Because what I was doing was the opposite. I actually was self-downing myself. I didn't even realize it. Rob was the one, the last time I spoke to Rob about this, Rob said, and you and I have talked about this. He goes, look, you do a lot. He goes, if you do something that you don't think is good, your immediate reaction is to say, oh, come on, I should know this. Instead of, maybe I don't know this as well as I thought I did. So, and that was not easy to do, but it was necessary. But yeah, I really liked Momin when I was thinking about that physics example, like the piece of paper. I'm like, that's such a good analogy for,
Yes,
you got to look at it
100%.
on paper. It's important.
Yeah, 100%. And I also want to mention that right before having this call, Paul messaged both me and Nick saying that he was actually sick today. He has like some infection right now, and he was having a burning sensation in his chest as well. So, Paul, I think this is a good way to end this video. Like, experiencing physical symptoms and like being not well right now, how are you dealing with that right now, and currently being on a call with us and talking to us?
That's funny. It's really weird because I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I was talking to my girlfriend about it. But so before I ever met Rob, and I had I was thinking about my saliva and my breathing. Every time I would get sick, it would definitely, make it a lot worse. So every time I was about to get sick, I would almost cry, honestly, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be so much more anxious, and oh, I'm going to be uncomfortable. And I just remember having a conversation with, a girl I dated, about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just such a different mindset. It was like anytime anything would happen, it was like I would just lay down and cry, and now yesterday I was like, man, I'm sick, I feel like shit, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I got to travel to Lubbock. I got to drive to Lubbock on Tuesday or on Wednesday to work, and I've got meetings I got to go to and everything else. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to just take some cough medicine
I'll have to do it.
and just go to work. But it's I guess I would say the biggest thing I would say is just discipline. When those times happen, you're not always going to be motivated to recover. You're not always going to be motivated to go to work. You're not going to always be motivated to do anything. And you just have to set in your mind and just really be disciplined. One principle that really helped me is I call it the game that everyone wins. So what I do directly changes every person that I meet, everyone that I'm around, everyone I work with, and how I act and what I do changes everyone. So when I do something, I think to myself that I'm going to go to work every day and show up to set a good example, to elevate everyone, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of what I do in life. Like that's how my mindset always is. Like if I act this way, someone else is going to act this way.
Although I will say that, I mean, everybody wins is a really boring concept for a game. I need someone to lose.
Momin, that is such a great way to end it. Well, Paul, we really appreciate, because we only have a minute or two so left. We appreciate you coming on the call. It means a lot. What we're gonna plan on doing is, just for people watching, we're gonna do a friends and family one with Erica. Erica's very excited about that. I had a lot of people. I had a mother message me the other day. She asked me this long question, and then at the bottom she said, "This is from my son. Like, I don't have OCD. I don't know what to do." So there's a huge market out there.
We get that.
And then we're gonna get Rob on here. He has no choice, or else I'm going to fly to where he is and put him in a headlock and just rip his hair out. Thank you so much.
One with Erica and one with Sam and Harley we want to do for POCD and chronic jet tension.
Absolutely.
So that's coming up.
Guys, always a pleasure. Catch you guys later.
Bye.
See ya. Feel better, Paul.
Bye.
Hey guys.
See you, man.